So I'd like to ask you, as you have taken the role of the Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Morningstar, to now look into your crystal ball. And in your crystal ball, you're going to see the year 2030. Okay, so now we're sitting, we're sort of back to the future in the year 2030. What would your pontification be about the importance of the role of the CDO and what the CDO's impact in the organization of 2030, Morningstar 2030?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think that would look like?
Since we're talking crystal ball, now we're like in the land of make believe, so I can pretty much make
there you go.
Up, right? Yeah, in the land of unicorns, right? I would say view it like probably as three key components. Number one, what I would describe as free the data. So it's a constant analogy that people are using that perpetually. 90% of all the data in the world had been created in the last 2 years, and it's like, it's grown exponentially, and it's fair. I remember, like, years ago, I had a conversation with somebody, and I said, look, the best utility, reliability metric that you cannot come up with, like, hardware, space, or service, is the rule of 5 nines. So at best, you can be like 99.99% accurate. If your utility company says that you have power to your house 99.999% of the time, it's like, the best they can do. So I said, look, if I tell people that my data is 99.99% accurate, you'll think I'm a tremendous hero. Now, if you look at the number of data points that we need to deliver to our consumers, and that number of data points has grown exponentially, and if you do the math, the inverse of what I just told you means that I guarantee that every day I have 100,000 errors. Now, if you look at it from this perspective, I should have been fired like, 15 years ago.
Right.
So if we look at like, CDO 2030, you take those numbers and you multiply them by like, whatever your imagination is. So a 99.99% of data accuracy is going to translate into hundreds of millions of errors. So creating the right modeling capabilities to eradicate errors that matter is going to be important. I'll tell another anecdote from my prior career, kind of like, just to illustrate the point. So many years ago in 1990s, I was working on index products for Lehman Brothers, Lehman Aggregate. People might have heard about it. And I built a new credit index, and I went downstairs to the trading desk, and I showed it to the head of credit strategy, this gentleman. And I told him, like, we have the new index, what you needed. And he looked at it, and he says, the data is wrong. And I said, it's impossible because I got trading prices, and I walked him through my whole process. And he says, the option adjusted spread for the sector is, let's say, 78, and I know it's trading at 85. There's no way any of my models could have said that 78 versus 85 is the wrong spread. Mm-hmm. But the person who traded in this market for the last 35 years of their career has the intuition. Now, with all the compute power and all the data at our disposal, we can build machine learning algorithms who will build that intuition that took that gentleman 35 years. We can build it in a matter of minutes. So I see, and I hope that the CDO of 2030 is building models and learning algorithms that create intuitive understanding of data, that you can actually look at hundreds of billions of data points. And instead of creating like a proverbial ruler where you look one row at a time, it's like, does this number look right? You scan it from the perspective of what matters and identify anomalies and autocorrect anomalies based on your intuition, and that intuition comes from your machine learning and from your artificial intelligence, you name it. So that's sort of like, I think going to be an important sort of transformation. And I don't think it's going to be a step function. It's going to be like an evolution, one tiny step at a time. But at the same time, freeing the data and making sure that it can move from people who have data to people who need data in the matter of seconds, as opposed to a matter of quarters. So like, the same way some of the successful companies, like people cite Uber and the likes, where it's like, they connect people who have something with people who need something. Data is going to be that whatever you want to call it. It's like, people call it like, the new oil. It doesn't matter. But ability to create velocity of data and make it flow from owners to consumers and enrich itself, and again, a flow from owners to consumers in the matter of minutes and hours versus months and quarters is going to be important concept of freeing the data.
That is amazing. I love that pontification, and I just took some notes as we were talking. We're going to move to wrapping up the interview, which I really don't want to do. Alex, I feel like we could talk for another 5 hours, but we're not going to be allowed to do that. But you said, I just want to recap the principles in 2030. So the first thing you said was free the data. So the data, it's coming so much, the velocity and the variety of data is going to have transformed significantly, and it needs to be free and available in a trusted way to be consumed, right? So that was the first thing you said. The second thing you said was using AI and machine learning to really drive quality. Because when you talk about that velocity and the speed and the volume of that data, there's so much of it that data quality and data governance disciplines at scale have to be automated. So they have to be machine learning and AI driven. So turning the machine on managing the quality of the data set before you can turn the machine on providing value and insight from the data set, I think is that what you were saying in that?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right, Mark.
And then the third thing you said was learning algorithms. What did you say? Learning algorithms.
Just to help our systems and help our consumers build the same kind of intuition.
Yes, with intuition. That's what I said,
that professionals develop over
That's
decades
exactly right. So
career.
somebody just recently, I was talking to one of our ML leaders at the company that I work for, and he was talking about the difference between data-driven AI and intuition-driven AI, and that the constraint that ML faces today is that it's really data-driven. We've got to figure out how to get the intuition side, the human intuition side, into the AI and ML algorithms of the future. And so perhaps by 2030 we would have solved that problem, because to your point, the person that you had talked to about your new index says it can't possibly be correct because that person was able to provide that intuition.
That's right.
From experience, and so we have to figure out how to get that piece in there. So I think that was.
And last thing I just wanted to highlight, Mark, and I know we're wrapping up the interview, but 2030 is not going to happen, and none of that is going to be successful if CDOs, in my view, in their roles, are not going to experiment boldly. So I view it's like, you got to experiment and you got to cut your losses, you got to fail fast. But go and moonshot and go for as many low probability, high payout opportunities, but also having the courage and integrity to admit that you're in the dead end and cut your losses.
And that's wonderful. And then the last thing that I summarized that I love that you said, and I have to mention it, and I'm giving you all the credit, I just took copious notes, is that you said connecting data will be the way that we connect people who have something to people who need something. And then you gave the example of Uber or Lyft. But when you take that to its full level of abstraction and you really look at and think about it, data really is that ability, that connective fiber in so many different areas of our economy, our academic experience, our healthcare experience, that is really that connective tissue, that DNA that is going to drive solutions for the future. And I'm just excited, like I know you are, to be a part of the movement here as the dawn of the decade of the 2020s ushers in some really transformative benefits from data and analytics. And so thank you so much, Alex, for being a participant in this interview and sharing the wisdom that you brought to the table.
Mark, it has been my pleasure, and I really thank you for giving me the time.
Awesome. Well, we've been spending time today with Alex Golbin, who is the Chief Data Officer, the new Chief Data Officer at Morningstar, and he sits up in New York. So if you're interested in learning more about Alex and his world, you can Google CDO Magazine. That's the simple way to find us, CDO Magazine, and his interview will be posted out on the magazine, and his contact information should also be available if you're interested in having a conversation with Alex further. I know I'm going to use that contact information after this interview. I've met a new friend all the way out in New York. So coming to you from Cincinnati, Ohio, by way of Houston, where I make my my permanent residence, Mark Johnson with Fusion Alliance. Thank you so much, Alex, for being with us today.